We come on the air this afternoon with some breaking news for the Nick Craig Show. Charlie Kirk, the conservative commentator, the founder of Turning Point USA, has been assassinated, shot, and killed in plain daylight at an event that TPUSA and Kirk himself was hosting out at Utah Valley University, happening shortly after 12 p.m. local time on a Wednesday afternoon. There, in the immediate minutes and hours following, a lot of back and forth on social media, whether Kirk was in the hospital in stable condition, whether he had been gunned down in broad daylight and dead at the scene. President Donald Trump confirming the news in a social media post saying, quote, "The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us," the president wrote on Truth Social. "Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you." Charlie Kirk had a wife and two very young children, just 31 years old, starting a Turning Point USA at the age of just 19 years old, going to show you the amount of influence that Charlie Kirk has had across the American political system. And if you talk to people that are in their mid and early 20s and late teens, many of them will look at somebody like Charlie Kirk and say, he is the reason that I am politically involved. For many young individuals, obviously he was well known for his college campus tours, his Ask Me Anything tours, his Prove Me Wrong tours, where he would show up to college campuses, exactly what he was doing in Utah when he was gunned down earlier in the day on Wednesday, challenging individuals, allowing people to come up and challenge him, which is something that in our society right now, we don't do enough of. We don't challenge each other. We don't do that. We don't have open dialogue. Charlie Kirk is somebody that proved that open dialogue can work. He wasn't afraid to be challenged on his thoughts. He wasn't afraid to be challenged on his opinions in a time where being a conservative can be very challenging. A time in which you have to worry about expressing your political beliefs and opinions at your job, with your family members, with your friends, with the risk of being an outcast to society, with the risk of having some sort of retribution at work, not getting a promotion, being blackballed by management because you happen to be a conservative. Charlie Kirk didn't care. He would show up at these college campuses. He would show up at these events unabashed about what he thought, and not afraid to defend it. We need to get back to a time in our society, a time for the United States, where we're allowed to disagree without shooting and killing somebody, because that's where we're at right now. The political left is so narrow-minded. The political left is so brainwashed by the rampant discussions by those in the mainstream media that consistently demonize everybody that disagrees with them, constantly demonize anybody that does not toe the same Democrat Party line that they do. That individuals feel that they are empowered. Individuals feel that they are right and just to kill people that they disagree with politically. Circa July of last year, when President Donald Trump's life was almost taken in Butler, Pennsylvania. A situation that would have been completely and should have been completely avoidable. And now, the story that we're tracking this afternoon, Charlie Kirk being gunned down in cold blood, in broad daylight, in front of thousands of people at a Turning Point USA event in Utah. And folks, you might say, well, Nick, the media is not responsible for this. Okay, fair. Let's take a look in the immediate aftermath of Charlie Kirk being shot. This is before it was confirmed that he was dead. Let's look at some of the media coverage from the likes of places like MSNBC. Take a listen to this if you don't believe me that the media is not responsible for the ratcheting up of political pressure that causes people to believe that they should and have the moral authority and right to kill people that they disagree with. Take a listen to this.
Then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
So you've got this jackass on MSNBC saying, well, you can't say awful words in public like question immigration statuses. You can't say things like, oh, if you're not allowed to be in the United States legally, you need to go home. If you say those awful words, which are awful to outlets like MSNBC, then you should expect awful actions to take place. Saying, if you have a different political opinion from somebody else, and it is deemed an awful word, if it is deemed an awful political action, then according to this guest on MSNBC, then you should expect to be murdered. Plain and simple. In broad daylight, in cold blood. You deserve to be murdered if you say things that are even somewhat controversial. How about more from NBC? Here's Katie Tur talking about the situation. Again, all of this before the official confirmation that Charlie Kirk was in fact murdered in Utah.
People are really upset, and they start lashing out online, and they start blaming others for what led up to this. I mean, we see it when Democrats are targeted. We see it when Republicans are targeted. And we're seeing it with this. Anna Paulina Luna, who's a representative from Florida, has put this out on X. She's blaming the Democrats. She's blaming the rhetoric the Democrats use calling Republicans fascist. She's saying, you are the hate. If you're in the FBI field office and you see this sort of stuff bubbling up online, how worried do you get about somebody taking up the cause of Charlie Kirk and lashing out on somebody who's seen as a Democrat or somebody who is a Democrat?
So now the Democrats are the victims in all of this. The commentary from Anna Paula is absolutely spot on. The media has spent years, almost a decade at this point, calling anybody who supports Donald Trump a fascist, a Nazi, a racist, a bigot, a misogynist, a xenophobe, a thatophobe. You don't think that has an impact on people's psyche? When you tell them that 70, 80, 90 million people in the country are racists and bigots, hate people based on the color of their skin, they're transphobes, they hate people based on their sex, you don't think that has an impact? No, MSNBC absolutely is the reason why people feel and believe this. Mainstream media outlets that continue to deem anybody that has a disagreement from them as their political opposition fascists and authoritarians and dictators absolutely plays an impact. And as Katie Tur says, how worried are you about somebody taking up the cause of Charlie Kirk? Because that's what these people believe. They have absolutely no shame. And here's Brian Seltzer over on CNN. The same kind of garbage, the same kind of crap.
David, dovetailing off Brian's point about Kirk being something like a modern day Rush Limbaugh, he is not without controversy. He's taken a lot of controversial positions when it comes to the culture war. It's part of his brand.
Yeah, in fact, that's why Gavin Newsom, a Democrat who's thinking about running for president in 2028 and governor of California, wanted him on his podcast because when Gavin Newsom launched that, he was talking to some conservative movement activists and leaders to try to explore in the aftermath of the 2024 election, what did Democrats...
And there you go. So Charlie Kirk's not without controversy. Boris Sanchez, CNN. So again, if you are somebody that deals in anything that is controversial, which I would argue that the vast majority of political discussions and conversations are inherently controversial, right? You've got Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives. There is a very fine divide between those two groups of people. They, for the most part, believe the opposite about a variety of issues. Therefore, there is going to be controversy. And as you're hearing from the media, this is an attempt to try and justify these actions. Well, Charlie Kirk is controversial. Therefore, we should kind of expect these things to happen. What kind of attitude is that? That's the kind of rhetoric, that's the kind of narrative that you're trying to spin? I put this out on X a little bit earlier, and I stand by it. The left has put every outspoken conservative in their crosshairs, and there's scary days ahead. They have made every single conservative, played them out in the public sphere as the worst people that exist in our society. And it is not without action. And unfortunately, the action that we are seeing today is Charlie Kirk, 31 years old, on a college campus, speaking freely and publicly, not barring people from showing up, allowing anybody of a wide variety of viewpoints to come in and speak, being gunned down and murdered in cold blood. It is a very scary time to be a conservative in the United States. It is a very scary time when you've got media outlets. Look at the story in Charlotte we've been talking about all week. What was the headline over at Axios? This is fueling Republican MAGA rage. They do it constantly, and they have no remorse for it. It's very, very sad news coming out of Utah. Conservative icon, leader and founder of Turning Point USA, a huge influential person in the political sphere, has had a major impact on presidential elections, has had major impact on gubernatorial and state elections all across the United States with a vast volunteer network, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of volunteers killed in cold blood in what only can be described as a political act of violence. We will have continued coverage of this on the Nick Craig Show coming up for you on a Thursday morning. We'll be live at 7 o'clock on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook, and of course 24/7 wherever you get your podcast. Rest in peace, and say a prayer tonight for Charlie Kirk's family and the great folks over at Turning Point USA. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning live.